Hello, it's Anna and Sophie from Soundyard here. We make Chris Skinner's Countryside podcast, and we've got something very exciting to share with you. We have a new service that's being launched, and it's called Spoken Stories.
Spoken Stories is all about recording the voices and memories of your loved ones in outstanding quality, so they can be enjoyed for generations to come. For example, you know the story that Grandma tells that everyone in the family has heard before. Well, Spoken Stories is about getting those stories down and preserving them for your family history. Spoken Stories is about gifting someone the time to capture these personalities and unique voices.
We record your loved ones' tales, whether it's their whole life story so far or something more specific like a life-changing event. It is a gorgeous experience, and what you're left with is a beautiful monologue that really captures the essence of that person.
Think of it like an audio portrait, and take a listen to a snippet of this one from Diane's spoken story, recorded in her beautiful garden.
I was born in 1951 at Newmarket, and unfortunately I didn't see Mum for a year. I was looked after by a lovely nurse called Diane, my name, because my mum had TB when I was born. And so my mother never worked because with her problem with her, lungs, she had to go and have it sort of pumped up every so often. She used to do a lot of dressmaking, so she always made our clothes years ago. But yeah, she was a lovely mum, yeah, and Dad as well, yeah. That's very nice childhood I had, yeah, very nice. Yeah. I got married February the 16th, 1974. The weather was gorgeous. I ended up having to put on a big sort of T-shirt under my wedding dress I didn't need. I had a lovely one of those transparent umbrellas in case it rained, and it was just a beautiful day. I think I'm always sort of quite cheerful. I mean, if I go down the Luke and deliver some eggs to somebody, I'll meet somebody and chat, and then Paul say, "Where have you been?" I said, "I've been chatting to people." That's just my way. That's just how I am. We've always lived here. We had this built in 1974. They put the footings down in February and we moved in the August. Years ago, I used to go around the village on a bike, and when I had Ian, he'd sit on the back. We live in a lovely area. We've got lovely neighbours. They help us all out, which you all do with neighbours, and that's very, very nice. And as I said to Paul, I'm hoping we can keep this place on until, well, I don't want to move from here until I go out in a brown box. I hope that's not too soon.
If you'd like more information about Spoken Stories and to take advantage of our special introductory offer, you can head to www.soundyard.org/spoken stories.
And keep listening after this episode with Chris, and you'll hear another example of a spoken story. It's a view of the world from a 6-year-old.
There ain't nobody here but us chickens and Chris Skinner and myself on a beautiful sunny summer's day at High Ash Farm. Chris, you got some little new arrivals here.
You're telling me 2 weeks ago, Matthew, I brought you to this self-same spot and Mallard had just walked up the farmyard with 10 youngsters, and she still has 6 of them. And this is one of my new bantams, and I bought 2 wine spot bantams with a young cockerel who's on guard duty right by the little cage here.
Yes, he was standing on top when we arrived.
And this morning at 6 o'clock, this young lady brought off 3 tiny chicks the size of ping pong balls. They are tiny, and fortunately she'd only got 3 eggs, so it's 100% success. And I've just put them in a cage because obviously there's lesser black-backed gulls around the farmyard and magpies, carrion crows. That's just in the daytime.
And then on to the foxes in the evening.
Exactly. So it's a hazardous job being a young chick that size on the farm. And the cockerel is in sort of paternal duty. He's standing by the cage here, and every minute or two he has a crow, just to let her know that he's in attendance. And he's been with the chicks as well. He managed to get in the cage last night, and he was being very paternal, which is unusual.
So these are only a few hours old, aren't they?
They're less than 12 hours old.
They're already developing their fluff there, aren't they? They've got beautiful sort of fluffy, what would you call that colour? It's sort of
It's kind of a
two-tone.
beige and dark brown on the back. So I've no idea whether they're going to look like Dad or Mum. Mum's completely camouflaged, very, very beautiful plumage, and it's nothing to do with the sort of hard-nosed business on the farm. It's just very pleasurable, but it has an educational value because a few months back we started doing school visits, and if you want to impress children in the sort of 6 to 12-year-old age bracket, you start off with something like this, because it is all about food production at the end of the day, but also the maternal and paternal care that our animals sort of expend on their youngsters. Look, she's teaching them to feed now. She's picking little bits of grass, and they're just tiny, aren't they? You can't imagine they'd just fit in an egg 12 hours ago, and they've hatched out. So
it's all purely on instinct, isn't it?
Yes.
The mother's instinct, the father's instinct, and these 3 chicks as well.
yes, I know. It's just a glorious sort of sight, really. She's scrabbing for them and covering any insects in the grass. So they're on my front lawn, and she's got a little hutch here, so in the fierce heat of the day she takes them in there and broods them as well, and has kept them safe so far. So there'll be new farmyard inhabitants sort of strutting round the farm as the cockerel is there. There he is. That's a wonder he's not crowed. He's a very fine specimen of a young cockerel with shiny green feathers on his tail and the big red comb.
It is a lovely sight, and a sound as well with the chicks. One's trying to make an escape bid, but I expect she'll get them back in. And of course,
One has got
One is
out.
out.
So we're now going to check Mr. Cockerel's paternal duties.
Yeah.
And is he going to sort of look after it? Well, it's feeding very close to Dad. So
everything is fine.
yes,
Very educational, this. But of course, bantams do produce eggs, of course.
Yeah, I knew you were going to get round to food. Yes, dear, oh dear. Right, I'm just going to put the lid back on her little hutch so she can go in there when she wants, and she's making that lovely clucking noise.
Well, it's a busy time of year on the farm, I know. So
know.
We've got a few things to look at today.
We certainly have, Matthew, so we can't loiter anymore around the front of my house on the front lawn. The sun will be round here in a few minutes and it'll be boiling hot, but we're carting hay this morning and we've got 2 or 3 little visits out on the farm to do. So come on, without further ado, let's get going.
Chris Skinner's Countryside Podcast with Matthew Gudgeon.
Just driving out on the farm, Chris, and you've just stopped the car.
Yes, I have. I can just move up a little bit more, Matthew. On our way to the next site where we're visiting.
Rat is excited.
I just suddenly noticed a bird on top of an old dead oak tree here, and it suddenly flicked off the top branch. It's only about 15 feet high. It got snapped off in gales in the 1950s, and it was a little owl. And it was actually out on top of the tree sunbathing, and I think it's hopped. if we drive, I'll try and drive around.
It's only just gone 9 in the morning.
Yes.
But it's already a very warm day, blue sky. We're in the middle of a mini heat wave here in Great Britain.
Yes.
And in Norfolk, we've borne the brunt of it, really. But people are saying thank goodness for that, because it's been quite a cool and wet summer so far.
It has, and that's affected lots of our breeding birds here at the farm. Many of them are going for second broods, and I'm just backing up so I can just drive up the other side of the hedge. I get quite excited when I see owls out in the daylight, and we'll just see if we can go up this side. It might oblige us. And
You've got quite a good population of little owls here, haven't you?
you're telling me, and that's quite significant, and it's why I just pulled the car up to a stop. Unfortunately, it hopped off. It might be visible. Let's have a look. It went into this side of the tree.
They often find themselves a little alcove to look out from, don't they?
Yes, there it is. Yes. Oh, Matthew. 20 feet from us. Just there.
Oh, yeah.
You got him?
Yes.
And he's staring us out.
Oh,
Look at that.
quite stern they are, aren't they?
I'm going to introduce you to East Anglia's most persecuted bird, sadly. I've got over 12 pairs of little owls here at the farm, and certainly more than the really large shooting estates all over the eastern counties, because this bird is heavily persecuted. You can't believe it in this modern day and age, because they're easy to destroy. As you can see, it's out sunbathing in broad daylight. Well, that's less than 20 feet from us. Brat's got his head out of the open window.
I think he's having a look as well, you know.
And they're kind of staring at each other.
yeah.
But,
The bird's keeping stock still.
yes, that fierce look with large yellow eyes. It's such a sad thing. East Anglia, the eastern counties, has come out top in the UK for wildlife persecution, and it kind of breaks my heart. There it goes, just flitted off round to the other side of the tree again into the sunshine. They love sunbathing. So how does it happen? I mean, because everybody knows birds of prey are protected, and if I pretend you're my gamekeeper and I've driven round the farm in my vehicle first thing this morning and come back to the farm office, and you've just arrived for work for a day's gamekeeping. Say, morning Matthew, congratulations, I've just been down to the bottom 40-acre field, and I've seen a wonderful covey of English grey partridge there. There's perhaps 12 youngsters and 2 adults in full attendance. Absolutely brilliant. Well done. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. And I don't know if you know, right down in the bottom corner of the large 40-acre field, there's a large old oak tree there. And this morning as I drove past it, there was 2 little owls in the corner of that large old oak tree up in the ivy. And you know, I'd much prefer it if I didn't see them next time I went round. Anyway, keep up the good work. Well done, Matthew, and I'll see you later on today.
So the onus goes on to the gamekeeper without any express instruction, but the view is implicit that the gamekeeper's got to do something.
Yes, and of course the something is why some of the large estates don't have little owls on them. They will predate, particularly at this time of the year, tiny game chicks, and of course it really upsets sort of the shooting fraternity to lose any of yours. And we're just driven up this side of the hedge, and we're parked up in what can only be described as a glorious wildflower field full of beetles, which is a main food of those
2 or
little
3
owls.
6-spot burnets
And
as well.
6-spot burnets
I've
flying
learned
about.
from last week.
Well
you see.
done, and this is called knapweed, or hardheads is another name for it, and the field has gone from yellow a week or so ago to swallows just skimming over the top of the crop, and it's now gone to a deep purple colour, and one flying right down beside us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just a few feet away. So little owl one side of us, and and the swallows the other. Anyway, that was an unintentional stop, but just thought I'd demonstrate how I kind of encourage them. So I got lots of nest boxes for little owls all over the farm, and they're absolutely thriving. So, and of course, so's the rest of the wildlife. So there we are.
It's a marvellous time of the year. It's that time, we're just into August, where things become a lot more mellow. The heat of the summer reaches its peak.
Yes.
And then things become that much more, I suppose they drop away, don't
Yes,
they, gradually
yes.
into autumn.
That's the beauty of a good wildflower field like this, because come in a week's time and it'll be a mauve colour rather than a deep purple from the knapweed, and that will be field scabious, which is going to come into flower. There's some just in front of us there, a beautiful lilac blue.
They're dive bombing us, the swallows.
Yes, that was a wonderful sight, because I've disturbed some of the insects in there. I can see meadow brown butterflies and all sorts of...
Your car doesn't like the crops we're driving
No,
through.
it's because I've got a reversing camera on it, and to stop me driving into things I shouldn't drive into.
Oh my goodness.
and so it sent off the beeper. There we are.
Well, that deep purple, I suppose you've got all the albums, haven't you?
Yeah, I certainly have, yes. I was a bit of a headbanger in my youth.
Well, we were here about 8 weeks ago, in this woodland, and it looks very different now because this colour that we saw at the start of the summer has now gone. I'm talking about the foxgloves, and it's been a particularly good year for them, hasn't it?
Yes, the wet spring, Matthew, on this dry, sandy, acidic soil has suited them. And of course, as humans, when plants come into flower, no matter where they are, they always get the attention at that particular time of year. But of course, the plants are here, particularly with foxgloves. It's a biennial, so these plants have been here 2 years already, and they're now finished their life cycle. And it's been a fantastic year. There's well over 1,000 plants in front of us. It stretches right through the woodland here, right on the crest of this hill. Acidic soil, and they seem to like that.
And the reds and the whites were quite stunning, weren't they?
Yes, and some of them are 7 feet tall, 8 feet tall, some through there even taller than that. But my interest in them starts to come to fruition at this time of year. We're in August now.
But they're all gone.
No, look, there's still one in flower just down there. Digitalis purpurea. Can you see the purple?
I can, just about. But I mean, the rest of them are just all brown.
Yes,
now.
they are. But this is when it gets interesting, because foxgloves are prolific seed producers. And I mean prolific. So I've been harvesting by hand. I come in when the day is cool and I bring a large bucket and I do this, which is I put my hand at the bottom of the foxglove and then I run it up the stem like that on that one, and you can see I've got a handful of little cups. Then if I turn the cups upside down, and there, voila, a whole handful
of coffee granules.
Yes, what it looks like. They are tiny, and I mean tiny, because a kilo of foxglove seed is more than one seed for everybody in the UK. There's between 75 and 80 million seeds per kilo, and they are can you see? It's almost like dust.
Yeah, actually, they're smaller than coffee granules, aren't they? They're
I
tiny.
should think they are.
Yeah.
Yes, so much smaller than a pinhead. In fact, you get a dozen on a pinhead and they won't be touching.
So they ridiculously overproduce seeds, these,
They
don't they?
do, because the seed, you know, it scatters onto the ground, but it lands on top of the ground. And you can see there's some next year's plants that will come in to flower in 2025. We're in 2024 now, they're 2025, and the seed in my hand will come into flower 2026, because it's got to go through a whole year in what we call the rosette stage. And that's why I'm fascinated by nature. Sometimes you have to plan a long, long way ahead. So I've harvested over 3 kilos, and that will go off to a seed merchant, and it will be distributed in tiny little sachets. You get about 10 to 15,000 seeds in a sachet from the seed merchant, And
It's a bit of a cottage industry for you, really,
well,
isn't it?
yeah, it all helps, you know. On hot days, I get out of the way of the busyness of all the hay mowing with satellites on the tractors and all the gauges, and then the big balers come in. And yes, it's an era that's almost passed me by now, because I'm 75 shortly, and you have to sort of stand back a little bit, just learn to, and it is hard when you've spent your entire life doing physical work, and it's becoming much more like an office job, sitting in a tractor seat with all the computer screens going and beeping beside you, and it's okay till something goes wrong and then you have to get somebody else in, whereas years ago we did all the repairs ourselves. But
So while Daniel is piloting the Starship Enterprise, you're in the woods here,
Yes.
harvesting foxglove seeds
and
with
out-
your hands.
yes, with my hands, but I am using another technique with a big loader tractor, and I'm harvesting yellow rattle, and that's another brilliant year for it, and that's kind of liquid gold, and certainly all the yellow rattle I've harvested would more than pay for the contractors to come in and do the baling. So we're getting the baling done for free this year, courtesy of Chris Skinner, in the farmyard under the sycamore tree with his sieve, sieving out yellow rattle seed to get it 100% pure. But this is lovely to actually see foxglove seed, and of course I'll only harvest a small fraction of what's here, and the same with the bluebells that are all now on the ground, just looking like little sort of straw really, and the seeds are already on the ground there, and this lovely display will carry on year after year, and it has been here since I was a child, so it's absolutely lovely to see. But don't forget, foxgloves biennials, so the seed you plant this autumn will come into flower in 2026, so sometimes in nature you have to be patient.
Well, Chris, off in the distance, I can see a cloud of dust and a haystack moving at about 5 miles per hour over the hedges and through the fields there.
That's a giant load of hay, Matthew, just come back. There's just one more load, and they're 5-foot round bales on that trailer, and I reckon there's close to 30 bales on there, which is a full load. So that's the second load into the barn this morning.
You wouldn't want to take the corner that he's just taken too quickly, would you? Else the bales would end up on
They're
top
up
of the...
well over 20 feet tall.
They'd end up on the horse boxes.
Now you know why I'm out in the middle of a field with you on a sunny morning, and in front of us, Matthew, well, I've got to offer you a pair of scissors.
Oh, just what I've always wanted, thank you.
There, because it's a special time of year. Right beside us is a sign on beside one of the permissive walks here at High Ash Farm, and it's all about teasels. And each year I do a teasel walk at High Ash Farm, and I try and mix it in with sunflowers, which are here, and because it's summer holiday time and mums wonder what to do with their children, and this is all free, you can walk through the farm and visit the teasel walk here, and the sunflowers right beside us, which will be in flower in a week's time.
Enormous teasel plants, by the way.
And they are up 8-9 feet tall at least, so an incredible crop this year. And that's about, well, it's to go down and to come back is 400 metres there, and I've cut a little ride all the way round it so you can walk through without getting prickled or teaseled or whatever. Anyway, I've got a ribbon in front of us, and it's your job to kind of officially open this year's teasel walk at High Ash Farm. It's always just for fun, because when you walk round on sunny days like this, you should be able to see at least 2 or 3 species of butterfly. If you're lucky, you can see a painted lady. If you're lucky as well, you can see a peacock butterfly, red admiral, and there's always lots of whites flying around in amongst the sunflowers. Whee, look there. That's a peacock butterfly. Just came right past us, and it's still early morning. So there we are. And another biennial plant you can see on the little path I've cut through. Lots of prickly leaved plants down there, and they're teasels to come into flower in 2025. So another biennial, grows one year and flowers the next. And we know, sort of as part of the ceremony, we've got a military flypast going right over the top of us.
So you've organised all this.
Specially arranged for it. Anyway, come on, Matthew, without further ado.
Well, there's a lovely red ribbon here, so Chris has obviously kept that from last Christmas's box of chocolates. And so I hereby declare the High Ash Farm Teasel Walk well and truly open.
Well done, beautifully cut. And I've still got enough ribbon left for next year, so...
Yes, I could have cut it in the middle, couldn't I? That would have caused you a problem.
I know, I was waiting for that, yes. So let's just have a little look, and because rats ahead. Oh, that's nice. We've got forage radish here, and also this is the crop my father used to grow on this field 60 years ago. It's linseed or flax, and he used to grow that particular plant, and it would be sent off to a pit to be soaked in water just down on the outskirts of Renningham in South Norfolk, and that was called a retting pit or a rotting pit. And the fibres would then be sent across to the Belfast over in Ireland there in the linen industry, because flax is, you can get linoleum or lino from it, and also your best tea cloths as well. And these are all the sunflowers that are about to come
Lots
out.
of linseed actually looking
Yes,
around.
it's a beautiful flower.
Very good oil for cricket
Absolutely.
bats.
Yeah, I knew that would come in there somewhere. Cricket bat oil and linseed putty, of course. Lots of uses. But here's the teasel walk, and unusual plant because it comes into flower now. 2 flowers on each teasel head. It moves from top to bottom, and it's now in full flower. So as the day progresses today in the warmth, I expect to see lots and lots of butterflies. Small whites all flying along down the side here on the cruciferous plants, the fodder radish, and of course they all love the thistles which are growing in, and that's a special plant there. That's called perennial sow thistle. Looks like a miniature sunflower, and there's some growing out in amongst the teasels.
Talking of the sunflowers, you showed me some that are sort of in the embryonic stage, but they'll soon become proper big flowering sunflowers.
Yeah,
won't they?
about a week away, those ones that are facing us. Look,
Oh,
there's
how
one
interesting. Look, there's one that's just about to...
Yeah, it's just about to open up.
That's
Perfect.
quite an attractive sight, that, isn't it?
Yes, really lovely. Even before they open, they're very geometric. The actual flower bud is very attractive. Most people just wait to see them in flower. And what's there? They're 4 or 5 per square metre, all the way down here. So it'll be a glorious sight. And they grow like anything, particularly if they get a rain tonight. They'll be up there 5 or 6 feet tall when they're in full flower. But that's a lovely sight to see teasels like that in full flower. Brilliant plant. Was still used actually for raising the cloth on napping, and the very best cloth that's used on billiard tables is still raised with teasels. It's called carding, and the teasels are cut in half so the little spines all face one way, and you can actually raise the cloth, whereas replacement wire loom carders, as they were called, would actually tear the most delicate cloths up. So teasels are still used.
And if you have a tour around a stately home, then if they've got a chair they don't want you to sit on, they'll put a teasel on it. And that's the universally acknowledged, keep away.
Oh, right, yes. Well, here they're all attached to their plants, and they're yielding lots of pollen and nectar for all our butterflies. Just seen some more either red admirals or peacocks just flying into the teasels. They'll come out of the woodland.
Is that a dragonfly
Yeah,
there?
dragonflies all around us. Anyway, before you disappear, Matthew, there's 1 or 2 questions to answer. So we better get back to the truck and get your glasses on and see what we can answer.
The ducks at High Ash Farm going into roost for an evening. Hey everyone, it's Matthew here, and if you've been enjoying our countryside podcasts, we've got a small favour to ask.
Yes, Matthew. What we're going to do is to ask for a small donation to help run the podcast, and any surplus goes for conservation at High Ash Farm here. And so it's really important. We'd both love to keep the podcast going, and that duck agrees with me, I think.
Well, it's straightforward to donate. You can make a one-off donation or set up a small monthly contribution, and the address is highashfarm.com/podcast.
We're hugely grateful for any support. It means we can keep sharing the stories of the countryside, which I love doing each week, but it's that small amount of costs we need to cover. So thank you very much in advance.
We're just sitting in the farm truck now so we can look at your questions, and Rat has leapt into the car as if to say, don't leave without me, as if we would.
No, of course, no, he's top star, and just as we got back in the car, he decided to disturb a sleeping roe deer, I think it was, that were in the teasels, and it's just legged off into the woodland right beside us here. So we've seen all sorts of things already this morning.
Natalie Bartlett, thank you for your email with one or two comments about Himalayan balsam. Basically, she disagrees with you quite strongly about your balsam policy, and she says, please don't mention it again.
That's absolutely fine, and I understand your point of view as well, completely. So well done, and thank you for the response. Always gratefully received, good or bad.
Mark Linderson listens in Slaithwaite, which is in Yorkshire. And he says, me and my partner Jane are avid listeners of the podcast, and my mum Linda is enjoying the CDs that my sister Claire takes round her. It really helps bring the outside in, as she's mostly housebound with dementia. I have a question for you, Chris. As moths are attracted to light at night time, why don't they all just come out during the day?
Well, last week's podcast we did cover that, and we kind of discovered what we called a transition species, where moths do fly in daylight. They're the six-spot burnets we visited on last week's podcast, and moths are attracted to bright lights because it's unusual doing their habitat. They're adapted to feeding at night, and of course bats have altered their behaviour as well to feast on them, and some of our bird species as well, things like the goat sucker, Caprimulgus caprimulgus, that's the nightjar, and that also feeds almost exclusively on moths. So so you have butterflies in the day and moths at night, and it kind of splits the habitat up, and just the same as you'll have day flying predators like kestrels and sparrowhawks, and then their nighttime equivalent of owls. So nature is really clever how it spreads out both the time you can hunt and the habitats available as well.
Here's one from Tony and Jane in Great Notley, and they enclose some photographs. Had interesting visitors to our front garden recently. Is it some kind of fungi? Which is it? A rather attractive weed is in the second photograph. The honeybees love it. It's been flowering for several weeks. They're all under the umbrella of two huge oak, about 60 to 70 feet tall, and protected by tree protection orders. So there are the two photographs, and sort of mushroom type.
Yes, the first one looks very like a field mushroom, but I'm always suspicious of fungi growing underneath trees, particularly oak trees, because there's a very close look-alike, and it does look exactly like a field mushroom as it matures, and it's called the yellow stainer. And it is poisonous, and you can find out because if you scratch a stalk, it kind of smells of urine, whereas a field mushroom will have quite a sweet, pleasant smell. And also, on that scratch, it turns bright kind of chrome yellow with your little fingernail scar on the stalk, and that would indicate it's a yellow stainer. But always with fungi, don't eat them unless you're 100% certain you know what you're looking at. And as for the flower...
Yes, lovely, handsome yellow flowers.
Yeah, and if you look in any wildflower book, any of them, this flower is always top of the list because it starts its name with two A's. Aaron's Rod. Verbascum thapsus is the scientific name, and it looks a bit like a garden escapee, but it comes from the Bible, Aaron's rod, because when he took it into the tabernacle, the rod that was Aaron's staff suddenly sprouted flowers all over it, and so it's been known ever since as Aaron's Rod. So there we are. It's perfect.
And Bob Borden rounds us off this week. Bob lives only a few miles away from here at Blowfield Heath. And Chris, he says, we have very beautiful crab apples, also eating apple trees in our garden and meadow that provide far more than we can use or even give away. At the moment, we just leave any fruit we don't use to fall on the ground and rot. But I recall you saying once something about storing them in black bags and then getting them out in the winter for the birds. Is that better than leaving them on the ground? And if so, is it a particular time of winter to scatter them?
Yeah, brilliant question. And I've got quite a large orchard at High Ash Farm that has eating apples and cooking apples, Bramleys and Cox's Orange Pippin. And I only eat a tiny fraction of what's produced. Some I give away to friends. And I gather all the windfalls up as soon as they come off, pop them in black bin liners and tie them up securely, and the carbon dioxide given off by the fruit helps to preserve them in their own kind of gas. And then I scatter them, usually one bag at a time, which is about 1.5 stones, about 7-8 kilos at a time, during January and February when the winter visiting thrushes are about, and I put them back under the same trees that they've fallen off. And usually I've fieldfares and redwings as well as resident blackbirds feasting on them, and badgers at night will come and eat the semi-rotten fruits as well. So,
we have got time for another question,
yep.
Chris, from Lawrence. Lawrence Peterson lives at St Bees Head, Solway Firth. That sounds like a marvellous location. I've got 45 young oak trees planted for the millennium to celebrate my 45th birthday. Lawrence, we can do the maths now. Many now have bright red leaves covered in mildew. Is this a new disease?
Wow. Well, we've just passed the 1st of August, and the 1st of August is known in the Roman Catholic calendar as Lammas. It's a celebration of St. Peter being miraculously released from prison. But out in the countryside, on 1st of August, we call it Lammas Day, and it's kind of like an ancient harvest festival where peasants were allowed to graze the aftermath of hayfields that had been cut. So you could actually put your lambs out on somebody else's land, particularly common land as well, once the hay had been removed, and it's a kind of celebration. Now, Lammas Day also, with the 1st of August, which we've just passed, the oak trees out in the countryside, as well as many of the maple species, put on a huge amount of growth. That growth is called Lammas growth, and the leaves are bright red before they've got the chlorophyll in them, and because they haven't got chlorophyll in, they're susceptible to mildew. And so all the avenues of oak at High Ash Farm have done the same thing, and they're all covered in mildew this year because chlorophyll, the green component which arrives after a few days, is almost like an antiseptic and sort of controls the mildew together with the bright sunlight as well. So there we are. It's not a new disease. It's called Lammas growth at this time of the year.
Beautiful location to get a letter from as well. Solway Firth in the Borders. Fabulous
yeah,
place.
Just off the side of the Lake District there, getting right up to the Scottish border.
Chris at countrysidepodcast.co.uk, and that is the email address. It will find Chris, and we'll answer as many questions as we can as we go through the weeks and months here on the podcast, which comes out every Sunday morning. You can access it any time though, Chris. And for me, it's always a great treat to come and visit you here. And I'm looking forward to our next trip.
Yes, there's no telling what we'll find and what we'll see, but we're always spoilt for choice when we visit High Ash Farm. Do come and enjoy the countryside at this time of the year. It's great. And if the children are on holiday, it's always a great place to visit.
Come and see the Teasels.
Yes.
This is a Soundyard production. Music is by Tom Harris.
Hello, it's Anna and Sophie from Soundyard here. Our new service, Spoken Stories, is an incredible experience where we record the stories and voice of your loved one, which you can then hold on to forever.
It makes for an incredible gift, and anyone can make one. Take a listen to this. It beautifully captures the thoughts and feelings of life from a 6-year-old's perspective.
I'm 6 years old and I love running around. I can run very, very fast, but I'm even faster on my bike. That's why I love biking. It makes me feel energetic. And also I bike loads of places. I like doing sports like dodgeball. The people that are in charge in the world, well, I think that there should be no one in charge at all. So everyone's in charge. So there's no person that's in charge. So everyone is a bit more free. That's what I think. Well, what I try to change at the moment is global warming. It's when us humans litter, destroy the planet and all its nature. That's global warming. It makes me feel sad. And also, if us humans keep doing that, it could destroy the whole planet Earth, and then all of the human beings will be destroyed. I try to stop global warming, and also in my coat pocket I have a bit of Kit Kat litter I found on the floor once. I love the planet more than anything. Grown-ups should be stopping global warming, because grown-ups are more powerful than kids. But if kids can be more powerful than grown-ups, kids and grown-ups can work together and do it. Kids should be able to do the same things as grown-ups. They should have more rights. Well, I love myself because that I believe in a lot of things. That's what I love about myself. I like being a kid, but because when I'm a grown up, I have my own kids, because that's what I want. And also, I'm a bit worried to have kids, and I'm still gonna be a kid for a long, long time. So I'm glad that's actually gonna happen. I'm glad I'm gonna stay a kid for a long time. I'm gonna have kids because I want to know what it feels like to be a parent. I'm gonna be a good parent.
Isn't that just gorgeous? If you'd like to find out more about recording a spoken story of your own, or you'd like to buy this as a present for someone, take a look at our website, www.soundyard.org/spoken stories, and take advantage of our introductory offer. Alternatively, you can get in touch via email, hello@soundyard.org.
And if the internet isn't an option, you can leave a message with your details on our landline number. It's 01603 273 899, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.